Upbeat, mysterious music starts and then fades to the background "Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel." Today, we're diving into one of the most enduring mysteries of the 20th century. A story that has baffled investigators and captivated the public imagination for decades. We're talking about the baffling disappearance of Flight 19. What really happened on that fateful day over the stretch of ocean famously known as the Bermuda Triangle? Let's find out. It was December 5th, 1945. World War II had just ended, and the world was trying to find its footing in a new era of peace. At the Naval Air Station in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers were preparing for a routine training mission. This was Flight 19. The plan was simple: fly east, conduct bombing runs over the Hen and Chicken Shoals, then head north, and finally turn back southwest to return to base. A standard 3-legged navigational exercise known as Navigation Problem Number 1. The pilots were all students, except for their experienced flight leader, Lieutenant Charles Carroll Taylor. The weather was clear, the planes were in good shape, and there was no reason to expect anything other than a routine 3-hour flight. But as we know, what happened next was anything but routine. About an hour and a half into the mission, something went terribly wrong. The control tower in Fort Lauderdale picked up a concerning radio transmission from Lieutenant Taylor. He sounded confused, disoriented. He reported that both of his compasses were malfunctioning. He thought they were over the Florida Keys, hundreds of miles off course. But the tower's tracking data showed they were likely east of the Florida Peninsula, exactly where they were supposed to be. Over the next few hours, radio operators on the ground listened helplessly as the transmissions from Flight 19 became more frantic and confused. The other pilots' voices could be heard, also reporting compass problems and uncertainty about their location. Taylor was heard saying, "Both of my compasses are out, and I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm over land, but it's broken." They were lost. The situation became increasingly dire as daylight faded and the weather started to turn. The pilots were flying blind, their fuel gauges dropping lower and lower. Despite attempts from the ground to guide them, the squadron seemed to fly further out into the open Atlantic. One of the last transmissions heard was one pilot telling another, "When the first man gets down to 10 gallons, we'll all go down together." It was a chilling declaration. As darkness fell and their fuel ran out, it is presumed that the 5 Avengers of Flight 19 were forced to ditch into the violent waves of the Atlantic Ocean. And then there was only silence. But the tragedy didn't end there. As soon as it became clear that Flight 19 was in serious trouble, a massive search and rescue operation was launched. Among the searchers was a PBM Mariner flying boat, a large aircraft carrying a crew of 13 men. This plane, known as Martin Mariner 59,225, took off into the stormy night to hunt for the missing squadron. But shortly after takeoff, it vanished from radar. A ship in the area, the SS Gaines Mills, reported seeing a massive explosion in the sky at the exact time and location where the Mariner would have been. The explosion was described as a burst of flame that burned on the water for 10 minutes. It's widely believed that the Mariner which was notoriously prone to fuel vapor leaks and nicknamed the Flying Gas Tank, suffered a catastrophic mid-air explosion. In a single evening, 6 aircraft and 27 men had disappeared without a trace. The following days saw one of the largest air and sea searches in history. Hundreds of ships and planes scoured over 200,000 square miles of the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. They searched for weeks, combing the waves for any sign of wreckage, life rafts, or the crewmen. But they found nothing. Not a single piece of debris. Not an oil slick. Not a life jacket. It was as if Flight 19 and its would-be rescuers had simply vanished from the face of the Earth. The official Navy report was inconclusive, simply stating the cause as unknown. This complete lack of evidence is what cemented the incident in the annals of unexplained phenomena and gave birth to the legend of the Bermuda Triangle. So, what happened? The disappearance of so many men and machines in such a short period of time was bound to create theories, and it certainly did. The most popular and sensationalized idea is that they fell victim to the mysterious forces of the Bermuda Triangle. This area, loosely defined between Bermuda, Florida, and Puerto Rico, became infamous for supernatural occurrences. Theories ranged from electronic fog that disables instruments, to time warps, to underwater civilizations, and even alien abduction. The story of Flight 19 became the cornerstone of the Bermuda Triangle myth, a perfect example of technology and training being no match for the unknown. But what do the more scientific and logical explanations say? Naval investigators at the time and researchers since have pieced together a more plausible, though no less tragic, scenario. The most likely culprit was simple human error compounded by bad luck and deteriorating weather. Lieutenant Taylor, the flight leader, had recently transferred from Miami and wasn't as familiar with the Fort Lauderdale area. It's possible he mistook the Bahama Islands for the Florida Keys, which would explain his belief that he was flying west when he was actually heading east, deeper into the Atlantic. Once he became disoriented, his confusion likely spread to the student pilots who trusted his judgment. Their compasses probably weren't malfunctioning all at once. Rather, they were trusting their leaders' incorrect assessment of their position over their own instruments. This is a well-known psychological phenomenon in aviation called spatial disorientation. The weather also played a crucial role. While the flight began in clear conditions, a storm front was moving in. As the planes flew further out to sea, they would have encountered high winds and heavy seas, making a water landing or ditching extremely perilous. The TBM Avenger was a heavy aircraft. It would have sunk like a stone in rough seas, especially after a crash landing, giving the crew little time to escape. This would explain why no wreckage was ever found. The Gulf Stream's strong currents could have quickly dispersed any debris over a vast area. As for the rescue plane, the PBM Mariner, its tendency to explode was so well known that its crews had a dark joke about it. The most probable explanation is that a spark ignited fuel fumes, causing the mid-air explosion seen by the nearby ship. The legacy of Flight 19 is twofold. On one hand, it's the poster child for the Bermuda Triangle myth, a spooky tale that continues to fascinate us with the allure of the unknown. On the other, It served as a harsh but vital lesson for naval aviation. The incident led to significant reforms in training and safety protocols. Navigational procedures were reviewed, and pilots were trained to trust their instruments even when their senses told them otherwise. Furthermore, aircraft were equipped with better survival gear and radio equipment, including emergency locator transmitters that activate on impact. These changes have undoubtedly saved countless lives in the decades since. Modern GPS and tracking technology have made the kind of navigational error that doomed Flight 19 almost impossible today. In fact, the Bermuda Triangle is now one of the most heavily trafficked shipping and flight corridors in the world, with statistically no more incidents than any other stretch of ocean. So, while the idea of a cosmic vortex or an alien mothership is exciting, the tragic reality of Flight 19 is likely a story of a cascade of errors, bad weather, and sheer bad luck. It is a powerful reminder of the challenges our early aviators faced and the unforgiving nature of the sea. The 27 men who were lost that day weren't victims of the supernatural. They were heroes who paid the ultimate price in the line of duty, and their sacrifice helped make the skies safer for all who came after. The mystery may never be fully solved, but their story will never be forgotten. What do you think happened to Flight 19? Do you lean towards the scientific explanation? Or do you think there's something more to the Bermuda Triangle legend? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into history. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the unexplained. Until next time, stay curious.